Elementary, ranking the seasons. Hello and welcome to another video. This time around I want to talk to you again about one of my absolute all-time favourite shows, certainly my favourite show of the last 20 years probably, Elementary. And I want to do a ranking the seasons vid like I have for quite a few other shows. Now there's 7 seasons of Elementary, so we start from 7 at my least favourite to 1 as my favourite. At 7, I think I would have to go with season 5. Now, let's get one thing straight. This is not a bad season. There is no such thing as a bad season of Elementary. The show was exceptionally high quality all the way through. My problem with season 5 is just that I don't really like or care about the main story arc, the whole gangland thing. It just doesn't interest me, that kind of thing. And we also have like the major guest character who's so interesting I can't even remember his name at the moment. I didn't really care about him, and he turns out to be a bit of a twat at the end anyway, which we kind of suspected all along. And it's like, okay, well, why was I supposed to care about him? And I never really it seemed a little bit contrived why Watson was so determined to help this guy. I never really understood that. Again, it's not a bad season. There's still plenty of, it's still perfectly watchable. There's still plenty of great individual standalone episodes. The cast is still excellent. Johnny Lee Miller is probably my favourite Sherlock Holmes now, which is interesting because I didn't think anybody would ever replace Jeremy Brett. Granted, it's a very different take in a very different way, because obviously it's a very modern Sherlock Holmes rather than the traditional Victorian thing. But still, I love Johnny Lee Miller's Holmes. My favourite TV character, certainly of the last 18 years, I would say. Yeah. Anyway, yes. 7th place, season 5. 6th place, season 6. Now, season 6 is a bit of a funny one because it's good. I like the season. I like the story arc more than season 5. There's nothing wrong with the problem with season 6 is that because of the network, the season has this very unbalanced feel, because originally season 6 was only commissioned for 13 episodes, and they were rather than the usual 20 odd, and it looked like it was going to be the last. It looked like, and I as far as I'm aware, they didn't just write, they'd actually shot the whole season. And then suddenly at the 11th hour, the network came back and said, "Now, well, actually, we're going to renew you for another season. And also, could we have an extra 9 for this one?" Which is a really odd thing to do. So basically, because they'd structured it as a 13-episode season, and you had the main plot, the main arc is this serial killer who's played by Desmond Harrington, who was Quinn in Dexter, who basically kind of targets Sherlock because he sees him as a worthy adversary, because he's been getting away with killing people for so long that he's actually getting bored with it, and he needs some excitement, so he kind of focuses on Sherlock as a nemesis to play games with. And that's a perfectly fine premise, and Desmond Harrington's a perfectly fine villain. The problem is they'd already shot the season. They'd shot all 13 episodes, they structured it that way. You have like a 2-part finale. Because of what they basically kind of shoved in the 9 episodes that they then had to go back and shoot prior to the 2-part finale. So the result of this is the main villain and the story arc basically just disappears for nearly half the season. And again, there's nothing wrong with those individual episodes. They're all good, strong, standalone episodes, but it gives the season a very disjointed feel. Also, again, there's another kind of a arc in that, as a result of the end of season 5, Sherlock's kind of dealing with post-concussion syndrome, which not only causes like severe headaches and that, but can also cause memory problems, which is obviously a big problem for somebody who prides himself on his memory as part of his detective skills. But because of that, because again they'd shot the bloody thing, they'd kind of wrapped this up just prior to the 2-episode finale. So that arc disappears halfway through the season as well. So you're like, again, it's not the show's fault, it's the network's fault. pissing them about. They structured it for a 13-episode season, and suddenly you have to shove another 9 in there. Again, it's a good season. I enjoy it. It's all good. It just has a very kind of somewhat disjointed feel to it, and that's entirely down to the network messing them about. 5th place. Season 2, I think. Again, I like season 2. I shouldn't need to preface this. I like all of Elementary. I like season 2. It's a bit of a come down from the first season, and it's not one of my absolute favourites, I would say. Again, it's a fine season. There's lots of good episodes. I like Rhys Ifans as bloody hell, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Sherlock's brother. Good God, I've forgotten his name. Mycroft, Jesus. The perils of getting old, people. As Mycroft. You don't really kind of get into any kind of real drama with him until kind of towards the end. So the story arc is not as prevalent as in other seasons, and not as perhaps as compelling. Again, it's a good season. I enjoy it. I recommend it. But it's 5th place for me. 4th place. Now, this is a really interesting one. Season 3 is in 4th place. Now, this is a really weird one because this has a season 6 problem for me. And I don't know whether there was any behind the scenes reason for this. I mean, I know season 6 was shot and then they had to go back and do another 9 episodes because the network decided at the last minute. I don't know whether there was any kind of issue like that with season 3, but it really feels like 2 different seasons jammed together, because you have the first half of the season, 12 episodes, which is really structured and there's different stories, but there's a very heavy serialized arc with the character of Kitty, who's played by a British actress, Olivia Colman, who's great, who becomes Holmes's kind of new protege, and the relationship she has with him and with Watson and the department, and her kind of backstory and what happened to her and all that stuff. And this is all great stuff, and they kind of wrap it up with what feels like a 2-part finale, only it's like midway through the season. And then the rest of the season is composed pretty much of standalone episodes. There's no real arc in the second half of the season. And I can't figure this out. I've looked on the internet and there doesn't seem to be any... I haven't found any reason for this. It just feels really odd. It almost feels like a season 6 situation again, right, where they expected to get 12 episodes and that was it or something. I don't know whether that is the case, but it's a strange one, and I think it's a little sad because, honestly, I love the first half of the season, and I just kind of like the second half. The second half is fine, but I love the first half of the season. I thought Kitty was a great character, had a great new dynamic. Her whole storyline was really interesting. It's like if they'd done that for the whole season, season 3 would probably be even higher on my list, because I really love the first half of the season. But then the second half is just, okay, it's fine, it's good, but it really lacks any kind of real through line in the second half, which is really odd. Again, I don't know whether there was a behind the season, whether there was an issue with episodes, how many episodes they were getting, or whether they just decided to do that themselves. I don't know. I just find it very odd. And it's a little sad because, again, if they just carried that arc through the whole season, I think this would be even higher up on my list. 3rd place. Season 4. Season 4, excellent season. One of my absolute favourites. You've got a great kind of ongoing story arc with Morland Holmes, who's Holmes's father, played by John Noble, who of course was Walter Bishop in Fringe. And his father is very rich, very powerful, a kind of mover and shaker behind the scenes, certainly somewhat morally dubious, possibly even more so than Holmes realizes. There's an excellent story arc with him. Again, which goes through the whole season. Excellent standalones. Again, the cast all on point. One of the top 3 seasons. Absolutely love season 4. I've actually just started watching it again. I just watched the first 2 episodes. So it's only a few weeks since I finished season 3, and I was going to leave it a few months before going back to season 4 again. And I got to Saturday and I couldn't think of anything, and I'm like, should we just watch Elementary? It's like, yeah, all right. 2. Season 7, the final season. Now, again, this is an indication of how great Elementary was, because you don't often get final seasons that are like in the best. You often kind of get shows where the last season is a bit of a damp squib. Season 7's an excellent finale. I'm actually really glad, because even though season 6 is okay, it's fine. I'm really glad that they got another season, even if it was only like a half season. It's only 13 episodes, like what season 6 was originally going to be. But it's a freaking cracking season, and as perfectly as fine as the kind of the story arc in season 6 was, I think this is a better one with an even stronger villain in Odin Reichenbach, played by James Frain, who's a regular TV actor, regular TV nasty, and he's a great villain in this, and a great story arc. A suitably kind of powerful and really dangerous kind of final showdown villain for them to take down. It's excellent stuff. It's really edge of the seat at times. It's a great final season. Yeah, I mean, to go out on such a high, in my opinion, well done, Elementary. But number 1, I would say, I have to be honest, the top 3 are kind of interchangeable because they're all really excellent. But I'm going to give number 1 to season 1 just because of how unexpected it was. How unexpectedly good it was, in a way. Because I think I've said this before many times. I avoided Elementary for the first 3 seasons. I avoided it when it started for the first few years because on paper it sounds awful. I don't on paper a modern day Holmes. Again, I think I've said before. I feel like a lot of the appeal of Sherlock Holmes comes from the Victorian aesthetic. So doing it in the modern day is instantly kind of less appealing to me. Made by the Americans and set in America and with a race and gender swapped Watson. On paper, it sounds dreadful. It sounds like everything wrong with modern TV, which is why I avoided it. And then one day I happened to pick up season 1 in the library. You know, it's just something you could get out, didn't cost you anything. And what's really interesting about that is the disc was screwed. So the disc was completely stuffed. So I was only able to watch like half the first episode, like 20 minutes or so of episode 1. And I was already engaged enough to want to see more. I was already engaged enough by the story. I was already instantly engaged enough by John Lee Miller's Holmes that I'm like, okay. So I went and kind of on eBay got the season 1 DVD cheap. And as I've said before, by the time I was halfway through the season, possibly even less than, I'd ordered like the next 2 seasons so I could catch up. That's a good show. That is a good show where you've only seen half the first episode, and you got prevented from watching it, but you're like, oh, this is quite good. I'm going to see more of this. And it's a great season. Sets everything up perfectly. Has a great story arc. Number 1, just ahead of 7 and 4. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to keep pushing this because Elementary is an incredibly underrated and underappreciated show. Even though it ran for 7 freaking seasons, still very underappreciated, and you almost feel like it's unknown, certainly next to the much more glossy and much more crap Sherlock from the BBC, which was a load of overrated, overblown old crap, in my opinion. There you go. Elementary is vastly superior. Such a great show. A smart show written by smart people who actually respect the source material. Shocking that, isn't it, Russell? And aimed at smart people. Watch Elementary. Best show of the last 20 years.